This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. What scares us and why? What's scarier, the deadly snake slithering across your path during a hike, or watching a 1,000-point drop in the stock market? Look, both of those instill fear. But researchers disagree over the nature and cause of this very powerful emotion. I saw the one comment from a professor. He said, look, when you see the stock market fall 1,000 points, that's the same as seeing a snake. It's this fear, this response to the immediate stimuli. It's the empty feeling in your gut, the racing of your heart, palms sweating, the nervousness. That's your brain responding in a pre-programmed way to a very specific threat. And he added, since our brains are programmed to be very similar in structure, we can assume that what I experience when I'm threatened is something similar to what you experience. Now, that's not a universally held belief. There is a ton of disagreement. Science's ability to completely understand and describe fear is elusive. Hundreds of studies have been done about how bodies react to fear, and there's still no way to quantify fear itself. However, there's a book out, The Science of Fear, Why We Fear the Things We Shouldn't and Put Ourselves in Greater Danger. I found a quote that's very relevant to where I want to go today. Once again, snakes. Quote, the rather uncomfortable feeling most of us have when we're around snakes is evidence of how this ancient experience continues to influence us today. Throughout the long prehistory of our species and those that preceded it, snakes were a mortal threat, and so we learned our lesson. Others didn't, but they had a nasty habit of dying. So natural selection did its work, and the rule, beware of snakes, was ultimately hardwired into every human brain. It's universal. Go anywhere on the planet, examine any culture, people are wary of snakes. Even if, as in the Arctic, there are no snakes, our primate cousins shared our long experience and they feel the same way. Even monkeys, raised in laboratories who have never seen a snake, will back away at the sight of one. End quote. I'm sure there's some truth to that. But as I just mentioned, the studies have been done. They have not been able to isolate or quantify fear. So do we only have a fear of snakes? Do we also have a fear of scorpions? Do we also have a fear of charging rhinos coming at us? Do we also have a fear of heights? We have fears of all kinds of things that could kill us. It's not just snakes. It's not just snakes. And if snakes are put into a controlled environment, then you're not going to be afraid. Meaning if it's in a cage and it can't bite you, or if you know it's not poisonous. So I don't like the idea that we would just isolate on snakes. However, since I'm in Vietnam, I've got a snake story. And this is not put in motion by any fear that I had. I just wanted to do it. So I caught a video on YouTube. The famous chef, Gordon Ramsay, he had been taken to a Vietnamese restaurant in Saigon. And the guys there, the Vietnamese guys, were showing him all the assorted wild animals in this restaurant alive. And they were making this story about how you want to make sure you eat the animal alive. It's better for you and all this. And Ramsay was like, rats? He clearly didn't really want any part of it. And then they saw a snake, a cobra. And so the guys decided, well, what are we going to eat? And they decided to eat snake, and they were going to prepare the snake 7 different ways. So in preparing the snake, they brought out they cut the heart out of the snake while it was alive, put it in a shot glass, and Ramsey didn't really want to do it. They covered it with some blood, covered it with some vodka down the hatch. And like I said, Ramsey did not look that happy that he had just consumed a beating snake heart. So, of course, in my infinite wisdom, I see this delightful little video, and I ask my friend, I said, hey, can you find this restaurant? Let's go. Let's go check this out. Let's do this. She's like, oh, you really want to do it? I said, sure, why not? She finds the restaurant based off watching the Gordon Ramsay video. And we go to this restaurant. It was clearly a locals place. If I would describe the scene, it was all Vietnamese, mostly Vietnamese businessmen. And all of the waitresses, my friend did not know this at the time, but all the waitresses were dressed in very young, early 20s in very tight short dresses and 6-inch heels. It was not a strip club or anything like that. It was a very nice restaurant, but it was an interesting environment. So she went in, she explained why we were there, and clearly not a lot of white guys are coming there to do this, because they were definitely looking at me as a curiosity, and they definitely had that look of like, he's not going to really do this. They all had, everyone in the kitchen, the staff, the people that owned it, they were all just kind of watching. So they brought the snake out because we went down to film it. I wanted to see how the whole thing was. I wanted to break this down into its component parts. I had no fear in advance. I've seen animals killed on farms, so I had no pre-thought out fear of this. This did not cause me any issue. And we were not just eating the heart to be a bunch of savages. We were actually going to eat the whole animal, as they talked about in the Ramsay video. You prepare it like 7 different ways. And we did end up eating it like 7 different ways. But anyways, in the kitchen, as they're doing the prep, one guy grabs the tail with one arm and one hand, and then the other hand, he holds the head and he outstretches the thing. And it was like 2 meters long. The other guy comes up in the first third of the snake and he makes a slit and he pulls the insides down and out. It's kind of like hanging out of the snake. And he just kind of uses scissors and he cuts the heart off, throws it into a shot glass. Blood drains out of the snake into a cup, a serving cup. And then they cut the bile sac out too. My friend ended up eating the bile sac. I did not. That looked really gross, really. I'd rather have eaten the beating heart. It was just kind of red and beating, and the bile sac was blue. Not that I had a fear of it, and I would have done it if I had to, but it was more interesting to eat the heart. So we went back after we watched this kitchen prep of our meal, and we went back to our table, sat down. They brought it up to us. We do have this filmed. I do have it filmed of a beating heart on my tongue before it went down the hatch. You just taste, it's a vodka shot. So how much do you really taste, right? You don't taste anything. So what's the moral of this as I bring up this whole discussion of fear today, the science of fear? Break it down into its component parts. For me, that's the only way. Break it down into its component parts and then live it. So if you want to eat a snake heart, go watch the process from start to finish. Break it down. Every piece, break it down. Then live it. Go through it. And find out that the fear is only something in your head. So there's no doubt that the fears that one might have going through that particular snake experience that I'm describing, it's the exact same fear one might have in a market process, in trading. Look at the fears people have about markets. I can think of 2 big ones. They want to trade, they want to invest. I don't have enough money, or I might lose my money. Those are like the big fears. In 15 years, those are the fears that come across my desk. Boom. And nobody ever says to me, hey, Mike, I have this fear of not having enough money. Hey, Mike, I have this fear of losing my money in a drawdown. They never say to me, hey, Mike, what's the opportunity if most people have this fear of not having enough money? And hey, Mike, what's the opportunity if most people have this fear of having a drawdown? What's the opportunity for me? They never reverse it. They never look at the other side of the coin. They just get caught up, like the snake quote that I read. They just get caught up with the snake slithering across the room. And the snake slithering across the room is the first thing they think of, which is, I don't have enough money. And it's all about losing. The fear of losing is so overwhelming. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but it has to be managed. It has to be put into context. You can't let that fear of losing so grab you by the cojones that you can't move forward, that you can't progress. So in the 15 years that I've been assisting people, I've never had anybody turn the question on its head and look at the opposite side, the other side of the coin of fear, which is opportunity, fear and opportunity on either side of the coin. But like the snake, let's break it down into its component parts. If you wake up and you think the component parts of trading are stories, listening to gurus, following CNBC, and staying glued to a screen all day, that's going to actually help to promote your fear. Because all of those sources are about fear and keeping you glued to something. They're not about breaking it down into its component parts. I think about my first trip to Bill Dunn's office way back in the day. And that was such a light bulb moment for me. You know, you walk into this office and there was no secretary. There was a bunch of magazines laying around that were several years old. You had to kind of saunter into the back area to find out where everybody was. Nobody was glued to a screen. Nobody, I repeat, nobody was glued to a screen unless maybe they were doing administrative work. Now for me, that was one of those magical light bulb moments where you break it down into its component parts. Because when you break it down into its component parts by seeing what the office environment is like in Bill Dunn's office, you're never able to look at CNBC again with a straight face. Because you're just like, well, this is like the Truman Show. This is acting. This is a con job. This is made up. This is fantasy island for the people that don't know, for the people that are still locked into fear. See, I can't tell you how to break everything down into its component part, but I'm telling you that if you don't think that way, you're going to fail. If you don't think about breaking down trading and investing into its component parts, getting behind the scenes and figuring out how it works, you're going to fail. If you like to hang out with and discuss with people that just make bold statements without proof, without evidence, just because it's my opinion and I just want to say it and I just want people to listen to me, that's not breaking it down. I'm convinced the only reason that I have any access, that I have any respect, is because the people that know that I'm breaking this down. They know that's what drives me. They know that I'm not just sitting around and pontificating and saying, well, I think the market's going to go to this today. It's going to drop tomorrow. It's going to do this. Oh, yes, of course, there are plenty of people that know that I have a libertarian perspective. And I don't even like that word. But anyways, for lack of a better term, that's where I sit. They know that I don't care for the Fed manipulating markets. But you know what? That's an all right perspective to have, because a huge number of successful market people are in the same space. And it's an honorable way to think that, because look, we all want to play in a level playing field and we all want to have the chance. We don't want to see the game rigged. So my simple lesson today: walk right in to the snake. Take the snake apart. Find out how the snake works. Eat the snake if you have to. That's how you learn. That's how you gain confidence. That's how you can start to overcome some of your fears. And whether they're fears of snakes, whether they're fears of markets, in my humble opinion, it's all the same. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.